gave me some motion.
One thing, I'm not a spokesman for the other branches, obviously, but one thing that I think is would be important to you is the Air Force would never make you into a GMO or a General Medical Officer. You will be going to residency after you graduate med school. Whether, I don't know how many times this happens now for the other branches, but I think their contract pretty much says that they can make you a GMO. And so, I mean, obviously that would be something worth looking into, or at least asking the question if you were to talk to another recruiter. So check on that. Yeah.
Do you want to explain what a GMO is and how the whole match works?
Yeah. A GMO, do you guys know what a GMO is? Basically, General Medical Officer. This is someone who graduated, they're a doctor. I mean, they graduated med school, but they're not residency trained, so the scope, I guess, of what they're doing from day to day is a little different. I mean, they're not, you know, like a pediatrician. They're, I call them like runny nose doctor. You know, just the things that you can do are limited. You're not going to be an internal medicine, you know, doctor or anything like that. The way our match works, now this is a great question. Obviously very important for med students. Part of our program, you will have to apply to the Air Force residency program. Everyone's like, don't freak out. Air Force residency program, with the exception of 2 facilities, are all attached to civilian education system. Some people get the feeling that because it's Air Force and it's government run and things like that, that we're going to train you to a lower standard. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Looking at the board results from prior years, we're actually scoring higher than your civilian counterparts. Pretty much across the board, I think with the exception of maybe 2 residencies, that's all right.
Yeah.
We're not going to train you to any lower standard. There's a lot of benefits to going to an Air Force residency. One, you'd actually be on active duty status, so you're probably going to make about $6 grand more on average than your civilian resident. You're going to start gaining active duty time towards a potential 20-year retirement. Air Force residents are still kind of on that schedule where we're not going to, I'm not going to say you're not going to work long hours, but you're not going to be working, you know, you see those shows like Scrubs where they're like pretty much sleeping there. And of course, Air Force regulations and stuff like that kind of say how many hours you can work each day. And so that's kind of a plus. You're going to get all the active duty benefits, medically, dental, things like that. I'd say the con, if you're one of those people I talked about that are just strictly looking at this from a money, you know, point of view, you know, you might want to stay out of the Air Force as long as possible. So obviously, Air Force residency would be 3 additional years at least to your payback, where you'd have to wear a uniform and have a short haircut for you guys. When I say you have to apply to an Air Force residency, it doesn't mean that you have to do Air Force residency. We do offer deferments, so you can go to a civilian residency if you'd like. And I think that's probably mostly designed for people who are just using this as a stepping stone and just doing the 4-year payback. Hold on one sec. Last year, basically matched, I think, 76% Air Force residency. The remaining either went the civilian route. Some people just didn't match. And so for people like that, we offer a 1-year internship in either family practice, internal medicine, or peds, or flight surgeon, or flight medicine. And for that year, basically, you're doing an internship in either one of those 4 programs. And then that following year, you reapply and go your residency. Very rare. I mean, the quality of apps we usually take in, I don't think we're usually having that kind of problem. But I did meet one flight surgeon at Shaw Air Force Base who actually took a break on purpose. She took that internship in flight medicine because she was just burnt out. And, you know, so we're not going to hold that against you either. I think there was one.
So if you attend an Air Force residency, then that's another 3 years of payback?
No, sir. The only time that you're going to incur debt as far as payback is during the times we're sponsoring you through med school. So if you do go to an Air Force residency, you're not going to incur more debt, but you don't take away from your 4 years either. It's just, you know, your 3 or 4 year residency typically, and then when you're done, you're going to come do your 4-year payback, and then
So the payback starts after your residency is
in either case.
completed,
Yep.
and you can go to Air Force residency or civilian, and either or, it doesn't really matter, it's just your preference.
Correct.
I think the biggest thing is if you do attend an Air Force residency, if you decide to make it a career, that time will go towards your career. So 4 years of Air Force residency, 4 years of payback, you actually have 8 years in the Air Force to a 20-year time.
Yeah, with 12 to go.
Yes.
For like the residency programs that you have, so basically in the Air Force you can choose any residency that you would want to choose on your own. What about fellowships? Like for example, if you want to do like a specialty like cardiology, do you do fellowships, or do you make you do your 4-year payback before you do your fellowship?
Let me start with what you said first. At no time will the Air Force ever force you to do a residency. Basically, the person who has control of that ball is you, the actual person themselves. And what I mean by that is, not everybody in this room is going to be a neurologist. That's just the way it is. Not everyone's going to graduate top of their class in med school. And not to say you have to be top to be a neurologist, but that's sometimes people are shooting for the moon when they're, mid-grade type thing. And so if anytime you weren't going to get the residency of choice, it wouldn't be the Air Force's fault. It would be the person applying for the residency. Sorry, refresh my memory on the second part. Fellowships. Fellowships we definitely offer. Now, typically, when we're recruiting HPSP candidates, we're looking for your 3 or 4-year residency and then come to your payback. Not to say that we're not going to allow you to do a fellowship, especially if it's a need of the Air Force, which is a huge thing with us to fill our slots. If we were to allow you to do a fellowship, if we were sponsoring you through that fellowship, it could come with a tail end, more time payback, basically. So say if you do your 3-year residency and then got specialized maybe another 2 years, if we're sponsoring you through that, meaning we're paying your way to go through that, if it's like a civilian course you're taking, there might be a kick, like a 2-year tack on to the end of this. But that would all be, handled up front prior to you doing it. It wouldn't be like a surprise. Can I answer your question?
Yeah, but for the fellowship part though, like a lot of times it's kind of like a residency program, but it's training in that certain specialty.
Yeah.
So you're not really paying to do it, more or less. It's just like an additional residency. So I didn't know if, since you weren't, like technically, I guess you were like paying like a monthly stipend, if that would cause you to have an extra year or what.
Well, I guess maybe my example, there's actually a colonel in my neighborhood that is going to UNC for a fellowship. I don't know if he's redoing his residency or is changing his specialty or what. He's on active duty status, except he goes to school pretty much every day. And so that's what he's picking up an Air Force paycheck basically to change his residency because it's a need of the Air Force. And that's maybe kind of what I mean by us kind of sponsoring you through that. And I'm sure, I haven't asked him specifically, but I'm sure he owes a little more tacked onto his time because of that. Because basically we're allowing you to go do something that's, it's benefiting you, it's benefiting us in the long run, but we're not actually doing work every day for the Air Force, and so we kind of want something to flip in.
Yeah. What are the bonuses like for a doctor versus say any other commercial officer?
Wow. Well, I know, pilots and nav troops and things like that get a nice bonus. We're going to make it worth your while in most cases. I say most cases because obviously, anesthesiologists and things of that nature can make some huge money in the outside. But we do throw and dangle a lot of carrots to try to entice you to stay and make a career out of it. And it ranges depending on what your residency or your specialty is. I'd say your average right now, your annual bonus for being like a family practice doc would be $20 grand, and that's just the bonus. That's not on top of all the other things. I think right now, 46 for like a neurologist each year. And then there's another bonus for the number amount of years you sign up. So we call it the multi-year service agreement. If you sign up for 4 years, you might get another, up to 60 grand basically each year. And that's each year you sign up. And so it's, it gets kind of confusing, but doing the best. I'd say typically your average HPSP person coming straight out of residency, you're coming in as a captain in the Air Force. I'd say your salary range is between 75 and 96, depending on where you're located, because part of your pay is housing allowance, and that can rise or depending on the cost of living of that area. If you're assigned to like Washington D.C., of course, you're going to get a large chunk of money for your housing compared to say like Alabama or something. After your payback, around your 3rd year mark, the Air Force is going to ask you, are you enjoying yourself? Do you like serving the Air Force? Do you want to make a run of it? Do you want to go a little bit longer? At which point, around your 3rd year mark, they're going to ask you, do you want to sign up for some more time? If you say yes, you can sign up between a 2-year to a 4-year agreement. Of course, the longer you sign up, the more money they're going to throw at you. And that's when they're going to start throwing you those bonuses, the 60 grand, or up to 60 grand depending on your specialty, plus the bonus you already get for your specialty. That could jump your pay up to, between 120 and I think I've seen some 136s out there, because of course you're going to get a pay raise with your rank and everything as well. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Google. Google this, average income for a family practice or a peds doc. We're right there. National average, I think. The great thing about it is in the Air Force, you're going to have a little bit of a life after your work. Basically our clinics are open, usually from Monday through Friday, up until about 4:30, 5 o'clock, opening around 6:30, give or take. Every base usually comes with a golf course. I have a funny story. He was a fully qualified doc. I took him down to Seymour Johnson in Goldsboro. We rolled into the base around 4:30. I'm kind of taking him around, showing him all the facilities, the gym and things. We go to see this doc, and we get in his office. It's like 4:30, and they start talking shop, basically. And I'm, just sitting there waiting. By the time we finished, it was like 4:45. We opened the door to leave. The lights are out. The fully qualified doc was just he was amazed. He's like, where did everybody go? The doc, he's like, it's 4:30, buddy. We're out of here. This fully qualified doc, he was ready to go. So he's like, Sergeant Miller, apparently, I guess he bought into like a family practice, and I don't know how it works so much, but because he was kind of like the rookie family practice doc in this partnership, he was working all the crummy hours. He was on call, and he had so much stuff on his plate. When he punched his clock, finishing with patients, he had maybe 3 hours every night to do all this other stuff just to run a business. And really, he was sold like that. He was just amazed that that's the way we did things. You have anything to add to that?
I think, talking about time where, when I was talking about the quality of people we're bringing in, not just doctors, you have a staff that's going to work for you, of airmen and non-commissioned officers, NCOs, that take care of all the paperwork, and you don't have to worry about paying rent or scheduling appointments and that kind of stuff. They take care of it. Not only that, if you see a patient and you prescribe something to them, you don't worry about, is this person going to afford this? Is their insurance going to cover it? Those kinds of things. They're going to get that care of that. They have to in the Air Force. So you prescribe something to them, that's what you feel they need, that's what the Air Force is going to give them. So I think that takes a lot of worry, a lot of burden off of people, especially if you're just starting out right out of med school, those kinds of things. It's another huge advantage of working in the Air Force, even if it's just for the 4 years. Because if you do the Air Force and you come out and you are an officer, like Sergeant Miller was saying, you are going to have somewhat of a leadership role. And we're not just going to throw you and say, okay, you're in charge of 7 or 8 people that work for you. We actually give you leadership classes, management classes, things like that, that are invaluable if you decide to get out after 4 years and